Hello and welcome. You know that feeling, right? You see SQL proficiency required on a job description and the pre-interview jitters kick in. Well, if that's you, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to crack the code on the SQL questions that can make or break your technical interview.
Tech interviews can be pretty stressful, let's be honest. But what if I told you that a huge chunk of SQL questions really just circle around the same 5 core ideas? Yep, these are the concepts that interviewers just love to ask about to see who really gets it and who just knows the basic syntax.
So my goal here is super simple. Let's take that interview anxiety and flip it into pure, rock-solid confidence. We're going to build a powerful toolkit piece by piece so you can walk into that next interview feeling prepared and ready to knock it out of the park. Okay, let's get into it.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll hit the 3 different ways to delete data. Then, we'll get into the keys that hold your whole database together. After that, it's all about mastering how to filter and group your data with surgical precision. Then, of course, a masterclass in the all-important joins. And we'll finish up by adding some seriously powerful functions to your toolkit. Let's do this.
First up, drop, truncate, and delete. You know, an interviewer asks this question to see if you grasp a really fundamental concept, the difference between changing the data inside a table versus changing the table itself. It's a classic for a very good reason.
Okay, let's break this down with an analogy. Think of your data table as a big binder. Delete is like carefully ripping out a single page, or maybe a few specific pages. It's a data manipulation command, so you have to hit save, or commit, to make the change permanent. Truncate is like popping open the binder rings and dumping out all the pages at once. It's super fast. The binder itself is still there, but it's totally empty. And then there's drop. That's like taking the entire binder, cover, pages, everything, and just throwing it straight in the recycling bin. It's gone. Both truncate and drop are data definition commands, which means they happen instantly, no takebacks.
And here's where delete is so useful. That little where clause is your best friend. It lets you perform a surgical strike on your data, taking out just the rows you want. Now, if you forget the where clause, yeah, it'll delete everything, but it does it row by painstaking row, which is exactly why truncate is way faster if you just want to wipe the whole table clean.
All right, let's move on to the next tool in our kit. We're talking about database keys. Seriously, these are the absolute foundation of any good relational database. They ensure your data stays clean and consistent, and they build the bridges between tables that make your data so powerful.
This table right here is basically your cheat sheet. The primary key is the big boss. No duplicates, no empty values, and you only get one per table. It's the unique ID for every single record. A foreign key is the connector, the link between 2 tables. But here's the tricky part interviewers love to ask about, the difference between a primary and a unique key. They both stop duplicates, right? But the key difference, and you'll want to remember this, is that a unique key allows for one single null value. That's a tiny detail that shows you really know your stuff.
Okay, tool number 3 is all about getting precise. A good developer knows there's a big difference in how and when SQL filters and groups data. So let's start with 2 of the most important clauses for filtering, where and having.
I love this analogy. Think of the where clause as the bouncer at the door of a club. He checks every single person's ID before they're allowed inside. It filters individual rows one by one. The having clause, on the other hand, is like the club manager who's already inside. He looks at the tables of people who are already grouped together and says, okay, only tables where the average age is over 25 get to stay. See the difference? Having filters the groups you already made with group by, and it happens after the aggregation.
Now for another one that trips people up all the time. Group by versus partition by. Here's the simplest way to think about it. Group by is a summarizer. It actually collapses your rows down. So if you group by region, you get one summary row for each region. Partition by is totally different. It works with window functions. It lets you perform a calculation across a window, or a set of rows, but, and this is the key, it keeps all your original rows. It doesn't collapse anything. Let's look at an example.
This makes it so clear. See how we still have every single employee? No rows are collapsed. But look at that new column, average department salary. What happened here is that the query partitioned the data by department, creating one window for HR and another for IT. It calculated the average salary for each of those windows and then stamped that value onto every single row in that partition. This is incredibly useful for comparing an individual to their group, like finding employees who earn more than their department's average salary.
Okay, let's move on to the 4th, and let's be real, maybe the most important tool in our kit,
The Join Masterclass. Joins are the absolute heart and soul of relational databases. It's how you weave data together from different tables to find real insights, and you are 100% going to be asked about them.
First up, the workhorse, inner join. This is the one you'll use most of the time. It's really simple. It only brings back rows where the key you're joining on exists in both tables. It's the perfect intersection of your data. Think of it as finding all your customers who have also placed an order. If there's no match, they don't make the cut.
And you can see the result right here. We only get rows where a country in one table had a matching continent in the other table. Any continent that didn't have a country listed in our data or vice versa? Gone. It's all about finding those perfect matches.
Now let's talk about the left join. This one is all about prioritizing the first, or left, table in your query. It says, hey, give me everything from this first table, no matter what. If it finds a match in the second table, great, bring that data along. But if it doesn't, just put a null there and keep it moving.
And check out this result. Let's say our left table with a list of continents. Europe is in our results, but look next to it, null. That's because our right table of countries didn't have an entry for it. This is so important for real-world analysis, like finding all your customers who have never placed an order. You start with the full list of customers and look for the ones with nulls in the order data.
And finally, we have the full outer join. This is basically the give me everything option. It brings back all the rows from the left table and all the rows from the right table. It matches them up where it can, and for everything else, it just fills in the gaps with nulls.
We've made it to our final section. We know how to delete, structure, filter, and join our data. Now let's add some really high-powered functions to the toolkit that lets you do complex logic and calculations right inside your queries. Oh, this slide is gold for understanding ranking functions. Look at John and Jane. They have the same salary. Row number just doesn't care. It gives them unique numbers, 2 and 3. But look at rank and dense rank. They both give John and Jane the same rank, 2. But here's the crucial difference. After the tie, rank skips rank 3 and gives Mike rank 4. Dense rank, however, doesn't skip. It gives Mike the very next rank, which is 3. So remember, rank leaves gaps after ties, dense rank doesn't.
The case statement is amazing. It's basically how you put if, then else logic right into your select query. It lets you create new categories or transform data on the fly. You just say when this condition is true, then give me this value. Else, if none of the conditions are met, give me this default value. And you just close it with end. It's so powerful for categorizing your data.
And this ties everything back to our chat about partition by. You can take everyday functions like sum, avg, or count and turn them into window functions just by adding the over clause. This is how you do things like calculate a running total of sales or a 30-day moving average, all while keeping every single one of your original rows. It's a more advanced trick that really signals you know what you're doing.
And there we have it, your complete SQL interview toolkit. From deleting data responsibly to structuring it with keys, filtering with precision, joining it all together, and running complex calculations. You now have a solid framework for understanding and answering even the trickiest questions an interviewer might throw at you.
So, I'll leave you with this final question. Now that you have these tools in your belt, what's the first query you're going to build to put them into practice? Because thinking about how you can combine them is the real next step to mastering this stuff. Thanks for joining me.